but I've had some people say like, now that I got back, I'm recreationally playing sports again. And I know that my workouts are going to help me have more fun and do better at that sport that I'm now getting back into in my, middle age. Or I've had people say very similar to what you just said of like, I want to be able to get up off the ground when I'm playing with my grandkids. Like that's so important to me. And, if we really want that and that's important to us, there are absolutely steps that we can take to do that. And like, I can't think of a more important thing than to be able to do the things that you want to do for as long as possible. And not only is strength training going to help you live to the age that hopefully you want to live to, but it's going to help you have those quality moments in life that are important. And having those things identified, whether it's, like you said, being able to hold your grandkid one day or being able to get off the floor, having those things crystal clear in your mind, I think are so important to actually making people take that step to do this.
Yeah. Okay. Happy Friday again.
Happy Friday to those who celebrate.
To those who celebrate. Moment of silence. Anyways. Okay. So Scotty, we are going to talk about something I know you're really passionate about today, and that is getting swole.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that because I was actually like going to add this disclaimer. Like I kind of feel weird almost like talking about what we're going to talk about, which is strength training and you're about to get into. Cause like, obviously I'm not some just jacked dude.
Yeah.
Now that would be so cool if I was.
Yeah.
But
would love to be jacked.
It'd be amazing, but I'm not, and so it feels almost weird like talking about like, let's talk about how important strength training is. And people are like, duh, do you lift weights?
Do they lift?
It's like, yeah, I promise.
We do.
I
promise.
I try. Right. But yeah, like I think strength training is so important and I want our patients to know about it.
Absolutely agree. So let's dive into the data.
Yeah.
Like we are data people.
Yeah.
We're doctors. We love to talk about evidence-based medicine. What do we know about strength training and how it improves our lifespan?
Yeah, so I think that's the first thing you mentioned is lifespan. And I was really surprised when I, started learning more about this data about like strength, I think matters for improving extending the length of our life, which I would not have guessed initially. But there's some surface level studies that show like, hey, meta-analysis that's looking at 10 different studies of, do you report that you strength train? Yes or no? And saying that, people who at least reported that they were lifting weights, 15% lower risk of all-cause death for any reason, 19% lower risk of cardiovascular death, 14% risk of cancer deaths. And that's eye-popping.
Yeah.
But, always I think the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
And just because someone reports that they lift weights doesn't, there's could be lots of biases there, lots of things that, maybe don't tell the whole story. So I think it's even better. It's like, are you strong? Yes or no? Because if you're strong, obviously you lift some sort of something. Yeah. Something. Maybe weights, maybe something else, but you're lifting something to get strong. And so what is strength actually? How does that tie into longevity? And one of my favorite studies is it looked at about 1,500 men who had high blood pressure and were at least 40 years or older. Now they're 40, 50, 60, those are not just 40-year-olds, but men over 40. And they said, we're going to take all these people and at time point 0 at the beginning, we're going to do a 1-rep bench press max. We're going to do a 1-rep leg press max. And we're going to do a treadmill cardio test. Like how fit are you from a cardiovascular perspective? And they followed these people for an average 18 years. And what they showed is that the people who were in the highest third of strength had the lowest rate of death over that 18-year period. And so I'm thinking like, well, that's probably just because the people who are older were less strong. And the older you are, the more likely you're to die. So that's why. But if you look into the details of the trial, no, they what's the word I'm
controlled.
looking for? Thank you. They controlled for that, and they did statistical analysis to control for that, and it still held true.
Yeah.
It held true. The strongest third had less deaths than the people who are in the middle third of strength, and had less deaths than the people who are in the lowest third of strength. And then they continued to kind of control for other variables, like, well, is that because the people who are strong have, like better blood pressure, better blood sugar? And it's like, okay, let's control for all these factors and then see does strength still correlate. And the people who are in the strongest third of those things,
independent of all the other things,
lived or had lower rates of death. And then they said, well, let's look at, is strength just saying, well, maybe you're strong, but that's sort of like a proxy for you're just like really good fitness shape from like a cardio perspective, which is so cool that they had the treadmill test. And they said, let's control for that. So we're controlling. So it can't be that is explaining this. And even still, the people who take out the control for how fit they were from a cardio perspective, the people who are in the top third of strength had less deaths than the people who are in the lowest third of strength. So to me, it's like, wow, that is amazing. Like strength seems to be a signal for longevity.
I feel like that's something that it's so under-recognized also. Everybody knows that cardiovascular fitness is like important for reducing reducing your rates of death.
Yeah.
But like strength is kind of like the unsung hero of longevity. So any thoughts on why that is?
That's a good point. Yeah. So like what's the mechanism? So I think there is data that strength training and being strong, or at least, the act of participating in strength training can improve a lot of different health metrics that we all know are important. So like blood pressure. Strength training can have a moderate reduction in blood pressure. Blood pressure is one of the most important things for, lowering our risk of death is controlling our blood pressure. So strength training is super important for that because it can lower your blood pressure. Strength training is also really important for kind of metabolic health and diabetes and insulin resistance. Because the act of lifting weights, you're using blood sugar and burning calories and things like that. But also, the more muscle mass we have, the more blood sugar can get taken out of our blood and into our muscles, which means that the blood sugar in our blood is not as high. So we have lower rates of diabetes and things. So that's another reason that I think it can help us to live longer. Other things would be like, osteoporosis, osteopenia, falls. I mean, hip fractures is one of the most deadly things that can happen to people over 65. And not only if you're strong, are you less likely to fall, but because strength training strengthens your bones too, if you are to fall, you're less likely to break a hip. So I just think there's so many things that strength training can help with, which is why I believe the trial data that shows that the stronger you are, the more likely you are to live longer.
It tracks.
I do think so.
I think that's such a good point too, because that in our culture, and like I'll be the first to say this as a weight loss doctor, like it's so easy to get distracted by just the focus on the weight itself, the number, but body composition is so huge, like so important for morbidity and mortality, especially for the reasons you just mentioned. And I can't eat, and we both know, we've seen it so many times, a patient who is elderly, frail, or even not that elderly and frail, that, they're technically at a healthy weight, but, or maybe under that, but they still have all these metabolic problems and like mechanical problems. So extra emphasis on body composition and strength training is like so important for that.
That's such a good point, because I was just talking to someone recently actually who they've lost 36 pounds and they were so pumped about it, but they felt like they kind of hit that a plateau. And I was telling them, like, I bet you've lost more like proportionally of that in fat, because you're now put on muscle, which adds weight. So like overall, maybe I bet your net benefit is more than just a 36 pound decrease on the scale. So I think you're totally right on that.
Yeah. What about, okay, so we love talking about lifespan, but also what about like quality of life? How can strength improve quality of life?
Yeah, this is a big one. Honestly, this is one that motivates me personally a lot, because I think for a lot of people, like, I want to live long. I'm sure you do too, but like, I also want to be able to do the things I wanted to do. I mean, just go, I hope nobody finds this offensive, but like, if you go into a nursing home, there's a lot of people that they are alive, but man, I would want to do everything I can to avoid being that frail. And I don't mean that as like something mean, but it's just like, man, what can I do to avoid being in that situation? And, if you think about it, so much of the stuff that we take for granted depends on strength. And as we age over time, our strength is going to go down. And so we need to be working against that if we want to maintain a good quality of life or maintain independence. So I think of things like how strong your hands are. If you have good grip strength, you are more likely to be able to open that jar that you need to open the jar so you can eat. You're more likely, if you do have a slip and fall, you can actually grab onto that railing and prevent you from having a really catastrophic fall. Think of getting up in and out of a chair. You walk around, there's some people that it is really, really hard for them to get up and out of a chair because they are so weak that it's like they're doing their 1 rep squat max just to get out of a chair. And so for me, that's where I think, and same, you can make same parallels for upper body strength as well. Like, it's so important for us right now to be working on our strength training so that, not only do you get our peak really high, so that as we decay in life, because we get our peak higher and higher, it's longer and longer before we get to that point where we have problems maintaining our independence. But also you can slow the rate of progression. It's not just you're starting high enough, but you're also delaying and slowing that progression. That is inevitable. I mean, we're all going to lose strength. And if we start early and we plan ahead, we can do that. And that, I think, is such an underrated, important thing for, getting the most out of your life.
Yeah.
I cannot overemphasize it.
I think it also brings like a new, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like motivating, like when you are working out.
Yes.
Like, when we were athletes back in the day, like you would think about like when you're lifting, you'd think about like, how is this going to help me in whatever sport I'm playing? And that was super motivating.
Yes.
And now it's like when I lift weights, like I might just be like, this is a Peter Attia thing, like hold the super heavy dumbbells and just like walk around and like grip, like working on grip strength. And like, that is normally like not super fun or exciting or motivating. But I think about like, I want to be able to hang on to a bar if I fall when I'm 80 or like when I'm doing squats, thinking about, I want to be able to go from a seat, like holding my nephew and stand up, those type of things like bring a whole new, motivation to your workouts.
I think it's a great point. I've talked to multiple people actually who have said something about like, it's like, you used to go to the gym and it was just like, well, I don't like this. Why am I here? Like, what's the point? Like, I'm no longer an athlete, but I've had some people say like, now that I got back, I'm recreationally playing sports again. And I know that my workouts are going to help me have more fun and do better at that sport that I'm now getting back into in my, middle age. Or I've had people say very similar to what you just said of like, I want to be able to get up off the ground when I'm playing with my grandkids. Like that's so important to me. And, if we really want that and that's important to us, there are absolutely steps that we can take to do that. And like, I can't think of a more important thing than to be able to do the things that you want to do for as long as possible. And not only strength training going to help you live to the age that hopefully you want to live to, but it's going to help you have those quality moments in life that are important. And having those things identified, whether it's, like you said, being able to hold your grandkid one day or being able to get off the floor, having those things crystal clear in your mind, I think are so important to actually making people take that step to do this.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, let's wrap it up since it's Friday.
It's Friday.
And the dogs play tonight.
They do. Go dogs.
Go dogs.
Yep.
I didn't even go there, but it's okay. Anyways, do you have any like action items for people who are like, okay, I hear you, Scotty. I'm bought in. What do I do? Or other like take home points?
Yeah, I think for the action item, I would say everybody should just take 5 minutes. We could all use 5 minutes of just like taking a break, and just like decompressing. And like think, what are the things that you really want to do for as long as possible in your life? And also, what are the things that, you might be only able to do for a short amount of time? Like you're not gonna be able to play pickup basketball forever, despite how hard you work. But like,
never say never.
Never say never. Yeah. But right. But there are things that you're like in the moment you want to be able to do now for as long as possible. But there's also things that you want to be able to do for as long as you possibly can live. And think about those things. And I think that can be really motivating when you say like, these are the 3 things that I really want to be able to do for as long as possible. How can strength training help me achieve that? Because not only does that increase your risk of actually following through with the workout? It increases your risk or increases your likelihood, of following through the workout, but it's increasing your ability to, positively change your life and likely live longer, which is a very awesome benefit. And then I think lastly, that's sort of the action item. The take home message I would think is, I think we can all think of someone in our life who didn't take strength training seriously earlier in their life, I'd say. And, for that person, it could be a parent that you're thinking of right now. It could be a grandparent. Maybe it's yourself. That person might not be able to do the things they love anymore, in part because they don't have the strength to do it. Or worse, that person might not be able to live independently, in part because they don't have the strength to do those things that we take for granted all the time. And I just really think that we have a lot of control over this aspect of our health. And I'm a firm believer that whether you're 18 or 118, I want you to be doing something to work on your strength consistently, because I know your chances of not only living longer, but living better for longer dramatically go up if you start doing that. And so I just encourage people, please, please, please take this seriously, because I really think you can change your life by consistently working on strength training.
Awesome. I will echo the biased compliments that you have given me in prior videos and say, I think you're such a great asset to our community.
Thank you,
and
Christie.
Outside of advocating for the people of Longview in terms of cardiovascular health, like just your passion for health in general, and like how you care enough to share what you know to people who didn't have the chance to do all the studying that you did in a way that's like digestible is so great. So anyone who wants to come talk to Scotty about lifting weights or any other topic, come find him at Kirkpatrick Family Care. He'd be happy to see you. And with that, we'll call it a day.
Cool. Thanks, Christie. Appreciate it.